Hi, my name is David Scott, and I was a student at the University of Aberdeen from 1993 to 1997.
Thank you very much. And why did you decide to go to University of Aberdeen?
I really liked the idea of Aberdeen University.
Mhm.
I grew up in Aberdeen and it was my home city. And I just thought, even though it was meant staying at home in Aberdeen, it was a beautiful university and a lot of my friends were going there as well. And for me, it would just, it made sense to stay in Aberdeen and just, it was offering a terrific LLB course that matched any other in Scotland. So I thought, this is where I wanted to be.
Yeah, and why did you decide to study law?
It was one of these things that I probably thought it was a good degree to have and would give me plenty of options going forward. I don't think at the time I particularly wanted to pursue a career in law, or at least I wasn't committed to that. But I thought it would be a degree that gave me plenty of opportunities and options at the end of it, more so than anything else.
Yeah, thank you. And what are some of your favorite memories from being a student in Aberdeen?
I think there were a lot of things about Aberdeen University. Just remember being on campus and sitting out. It seemed to be always sunny days. Sitting out on Elphinstone
Yeah.
Lawn. Uh, um, the Taylor Law Library and the reception downstairs from that was a place that we gathered all the time. And of course, being across at the Ref as well, which I think is now called the Hub. But that
Mhm.
was just where we would gather, every day. And if we got like moments in between lectures as well, everyone would just sort of, gather outside, or there'd be trips to the Bobbin or trips to the Macher
Thank you.
Bar. It was good time, certainly.
Thank you. And you've also studied at University of Nottingham and University of KwaZulu-Natal. How did this international experience impact you?
Yeah, it was good actually. I was really lucky to get the opportunity. So I signed up to do a master's degree in international law at the
Hmm.
University of Nottingham, and that had a particular appeal to go there. But what I didn't know was that they had an exchange program with a South African university in Natal. And so after starting in Nottingham, I
Hmm.
was persuaded to go on this international program and spent half of the time in Nottingham and then the other half in South Africa and completed the degree program there. So it was really interesting actually, and I really loved the opportunity to go and study in a different place. And while I was in Natal, I got the chance to do some teaching as well
Hmm.
to the first year South African law students, which I thought was really interesting. It was a different sort of area. I hadn't
Yeah.
done any teaching before like that, but I felt that between the sort of knowledge base that I had and just keeping one step ahead of the students, that it was totally fine to be able to lead discussions in seminars and do a little bit of teaching based on what I knew of South African law at the time. So no, I
Mhm.
found that a really good opportunity as well as studying myself.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And if you had to summarize your career, what would be the key milestones?
Well, I came back to Aberdeen and I did my diploma in legal practice and
Hmm.
then entered into a traineeship. So, in a law degree, you have, or with a law career, you have a 2 year training program and then you enter into your career as a solicitor. So, I was back in Aberdeen doing a mix of corporate and commercial work. And then I moved to the firm that I spent most of my career at, Leadingham Chalmers, and was doing commercial real estate there. So in that time, I did, I guess, a great variety of work. Initially, leasing, purchasing, selling, but then I specialized in planning, licensing work, and all the other unusual things that come along with a commercial property job. So I think the variety of it was something that really appealed. No 2 days were the same, no two transactions were the same. There were always elements to every piece of work that needed thought process and needed a little bit of analysis before, it wasn't just repeat, repeat,
Yeah,
repeat the same way that some careers might be.
interesting. And why did you decide to establish your own firm?
Well, I'd worked for 25 years as a lawyer, and
Hmm.
so I got to the point where actually I just needed some change and thought if I don't make a change now at this stage in my life, then I'm going to be sitting at the same desk with the same people doing the same work until I retire. And the more you think about that, and the more you think, I don't want to do that. I want some change and variety. I've got
Hmm.
unfulfilled things that I want to do in my life, and I've got places I want to go. And so I thought if I can take control of this myself, then it gives me a lot more flexibility and it just shakes things up a little bit. You know, you can get a little bit complacent in a job. And I think a lot of people do that because by that stage in their life, they're perhaps earning a good income and don't want to change things. But my children had grown up and left home. They're at university themselves now. And I thought I can pursue other things and enjoy other challenges and still try and make things work. And so that's what I've been doing for the last year.
That's very impressive. And how does your typical day looks like? What kind of projects do you work on?
Well, I'm doing a mix of things. So, although I'm doing some consultancy work, I have some other interests as well. I
Hmm.
organize running events and I have a garden party hire business. So, I hire out
Hmm.
marquees and gazebos and all that sort of thing. So, I have gone from sort of one career to three careers just now. So, I'm juggling that alongside my licensing work. But from a licensing perspective, I deal with people who are looking to obtain or amend alcohol licenses for properties.
Hmm.
And so I will, deal with clients and talk them through the process
Hmm.
and deal with all of the work required to obtain or vary premises licenses. And the other thing I do is deal with other lawyers now who will pass me the licensing work. They'll be dealing with the transactions, and I just
Hmm.
deal with the licensing side of things. So I get a bit of work from that side as well. So
Hmm.
it's always a mix. Every day again is different, and I suppose that's what I like about it. And with a lot of the work, it means I can work remotely as well. So I have an office in my house and I can work from home, but it also means I can take off and travel and work remotely. So I've done, a week of work in Madrid and I was working in Marrakesh.
Yeah.
I tell people I'm in my North Africa office, but in fact, it's just me on holiday with my
Yeah.
laptop. But
Amazing.
so it mixes things up a bit for
Hmm.
me, which I suppose is what I wanted to get out of just taking control of my time again
Yeah.
and allowing that change.
That's very impressive. Very well done. And how have licensing laws and compliance expectations evolved over the years, particularly in Scotland?
Yeah, well, licensing is it's been fairly consistent since I suppose the new licensing act came in. It was a 2005 act, and that has, I suppose established how licensing works in Scotland. And so since then, there hasn't been a significant amount of evolution, but it's always a case of keeping up to speed on what's happening in case law and how different licensing boards interpret things. What we have in Scotland is 32 different licensing boards with each local
Hmm.
authority,
Oh.
and they all set their own policies. And so you have to be on top of each one of their policies. And these policies will change every time you elect a new
Hmm.
licensing board at local government elections. So they get to set their own policies. So you're always having to kind of keep on top of that and perhaps even influence those policies when they go out for consultation as well, depending on what you think should be in them or what your clients think should be included or excluded.
Hmm.
So keeping on top of the policies is the key thing. And I think that's where a licensing specialist sits above, people trying to either do it themselves or deal with solicitors who are not specialist licensing practitioners.
Interesting. And for businesses seeking to obtain or renew license, what are some of the most common pitfalls you've seen, and how do you help clients to avoid them?
Um, I think with licensing, the thing that people don't appreciate is how long it takes to go through the process. If you want to start selling alcohol in a property, say you are a cafe that wants to include alcohol in their offering, or if you're setting up a new restaurant in a place that doesn't
Hmm.
have an existing license, just the time that it takes, there are processes you have to go through, getting approvals from the planning of getting approvals from building control and from environmental health before you even start the licensing process, and then go through the licensing process
Hmm.
based on what you anticipate your activities to be and how you're going to go through it. And then once that goes out to consultation and it has to be, notified. you then have to go to a meeting of the licensing board, and they only meet 5 times a year. So if you're telling somebody that it's going to take up to 6 months or 8 months before they can start selling alcohol, that comes as a bit of a surprise. So there are some ways to speed up the process or to allow for interim provisions, but just being able to talk through that and say this is not going to be a quick process,
Yeah.
you have to be aware of that. So I think that's the biggest challenge that we face is clients' expectations.
Interesting. And how do you stay updated with all the changes in the laws and regulations?
There are a number of ways. I mean, we get updates from professional organizations about
Mhm.
cases that have gone through, whether they're appeals or whether, you are attending the licensing board itself and hearing what the view of the board is on certain applications. So, just keeping your ear to the ground, really. And also, as I said, my focus tends to be on the northeast of Scotland, so that I am more familiar with the licensing boards of Aberdeen City, Shire, Murray, and Highland than down in the central belt. So knowing what's happening in your area is probably the most important thing to me, and again, why it adds more particular value in the northeast rather than having a central belt licensing agent.
Interesting. And you also held leadership roles such as president of the Society of Advocates in Aberdeen and chairman of the RS&O Aberdeen Circle. What have these experiences taught you, and how did they influence you?
Yeah, well, I suppose in a way I like to get involved in things and like to use whatever skills you develop to, I suppose, share that amongst other people. So with the Society of Advocates, I was on the committee from a very early stage in my career because I just enjoyed it. I enjoyed being part of something where you had an influence. And
Hmm.
then a few years later, I was invited to stand as president, which was a real honor because I think at the time in an organization that's over 400 years old, I would have been the youngest ever president.
Wow.
So that was, great to actually have that profile. And, it meant taking on very much a leadership role. You have to, look at the vision of what the Society of Advocates is serving its purpose for, and how you want it to, move forward into the future. And you only get 1 year to do that as well. So
Yeah.
it's one of these things that you have to really get going with it and if you are going to make any changes or establish something. So I really enjoyed that and I enjoyed the opportunities that it brought. And of course, there were, interesting discussions had about what
Hmm.
is the value of an organization like that in the current era. So that was really good. And again, similar to that, you get involved in things like the RSNO or some social enterprises that I've been involved in over the years. You feel that you are contributing some of the things that you've learned. You've got a little bit of a legal experience, but you've also got just life experience that is always really valuable. But I'd say to a lot of our junior lawyers that it's worth doing these things because these are skills that translate into
Hmm.
running a business when you are at a senior level in a law firm or any other business that you're in. Or it also helps you understand your client's business as well. If you have an active executive role on a committee, then you understand what a membership of a board is all about and how things are dealt with. So I think it really does help your knowledge and experience of how to deal with clients as well if you get a little bit of experience in the third sector with
Hmm.
charities, social enterprises, and other organizations like that.
Yeah, thank you. And what advice do you have for students who are looking to break into area of commercial law or licensing? How to stand out?
Yeah, well, in terms of commercial property law, it has to be something that people want to do. And I think when students are studying at university, their experience of this is general conveyancing,
Hmm.
which is all about the actual process of transferring a title from one party to another. Now, I would say only a tiny percentage of my work was ever conveyancing. And what I was really doing was deal making. You're negotiating all the time. You've got one party that wants to acquire something, one party that wants to sell something. How do you bring those parties together so you make a deal that works for both of them? It's very different to litigation or criminal law where you have winners and losers and you're fighting your cause and you either succeed or you don't succeed. With commercial law, you have parties that you're bringing together in order to reach an agreement that they're both happy with. And so that's you always want to get the best outcome for your client.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if it doesn't work for either party, then they're going to walk away. So bringing parties together
Mhm.
to reach agreement on whatever their transaction is was the most kind of satisfying area. So you have to understand, I guess, if you're going into a career in commercial property, that it's more about deal making than it is about conveyancing, which people might consider a boring part of the process, but it is just one part of the process.
Mhm.
You learn a lot, especially in commercial property. Like I've said, every day is different, every transaction is different, and
Mhm.
you're dealing with things including, the tax side of things. You're dealing with the employee side of things. If there are employees involved in a property that's being sold, you're learning a lot of different skills about, the business as well as just the conveyancing side of things. So yeah, I would say open your eyes to it, and it can lead you to a varied career, certainly. And then
Interesting.
I had other specialisms beyond that where I went on and did a lot of planning
Mhm.
work, which I guess you can come into from a litigation side or from a commercial real estate side. And, that provided another area of interest and was quite a specialized skill that, clients would come because of your specialism in planning and then the licensing on top of that. So.
Thank you very much for your advice. And would you say in your field, would you say it's difficult to find clients, and how do you promote yourself? How does the marketing?
Yeah, now, I mean, I guess previously when I was with a big firm, we had a marketing team that would promote yourself. But in most circumstances, it's all about getting out there and I suppose doing a lot of business development yourself. It's about contacts. Who are the contacts who are going to make referrals? Existing clients that refer you to other people. People
Hmm.
move from job to job or from employer to employer and keep coming back to you. So that's always a good way. So, you make your personal
Hmm.
connections, and as people move through their own careers, they keep coming back to you. It's
Yeah.
slightly different now with the licensing work because you've got a very specialized area and you have to reach out to a particular demographic. Generally, people as well who are starting up new businesses, so they don't always know about you.
Hmm.
So, a lot of referrals from people in the industry that can then say, oh, well, go to David Scott, he helped me. And so that's where I get a lot of my work from. Obviously, a bit of social media, LinkedIn, websites, that sort of stuff. But yeah, it just depends. And the thing about licensing work as well is that you do a piece of work for somebody and that's it done. They might not need you again. You have to constantly be finding new clients. So it's like buying and selling houses for people. You need a constant churn of new clients because once they're done, that might be it for a number of years and they don't need your services again. So there's not so much ongoing work. It's more about, finding, them being
Hmm.
able to find you when they need
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. That's very interesting. And are there any books or podcasts you would recommend for our students?
Depends on what you're looking for. I mean, there are areas I don't tend to listen to licensing podcasts, and I don't think there are many or any that I'm aware of. But that's maybe an opportunity for me as much as anything.
Yeah.
I think in terms of general law, it's just good to have a broad knowledge of different things.
Hmm.
So I found books like Glogan Henderson, which was effectively, a book that covered all of Scots law,
Yeah.
just had a little bit of information on everything that you might need to know. And it was really useful to just, if it was an area that you weren't so familiar with, or even if it was absolutely nothing to do with your work, just thinking, you're constantly getting asked things, oh, you're a lawyer, you should be able to help me with this. And a general book like Glogan Henderson was really
Hmm.
provided a lot of the answers to things, or at least gave you a starting point on where to look for, general legal principles.
Yeah. Thank you. And what do you consider to be the proudest professional moment in your life?
Professional moment, I think actually being elected president of the Society of Advocates was a real
Hmm.
honor and something that you will always have. So I was a junior vice president, senior vice president, then the president. So it was a bit of a period of commitment to it, but once you've done it, you're proud of yourself. You're forever a past president of the advocates,
Yeah.
and whatever it is you're doing, you've got that behind you now, and it's like a badge of honor. And I really enjoyed the time that I spent doing that, and
Mm.
would say that that's probably the highlight.
That's very impressive. And the last question is, what advice would you give to your younger self?
My younger self. Yeah, that's a tricky one because I would say I have enjoyed my career and I've enjoyed what I've done. You're always making choices. I think now you see a lot more movement from lawyers from one firm to another where they are either pursuing slightly different work or, if they're just looking to get paid more and there's not so much loyalty to one firm over another. And I think it's probably good because it keeps employers on their toes. They don't take advantage of your loyalty, and it maybe mixes up your experience a little bit. So perhaps I would say, if you could have moved around a bit rather than be in one job, but at the same time, you stay in one area of law and you find yourself, you're specializing more and you get more opportunities through remaining in one firm. So would I have considered other firms or working in other parts of Scotland? Maybe. So that's one of these things that you sort of look back and think I could have done.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've now made that change myself. And so here's my opportunity now to do something. If you think, well, where do your opportunities lie? Here we go. Take them when you can.